The Nashville Predators absolutely cannot be stopped. 17 straight games with a point. The players are red hot. How far can this team actually go? We'll talk about it on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start out with a special shout out to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys, and we appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and finally back with my partner in crime.
That's right. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at Penalty Box Radio.
We have a lot to catch up on, and
we do.
Since we last saw each other, each of us had a nice little vacation bookended. So good to be back with you.
Yeah.
And, boy, we have some fun stuff to talk about. We have Nashville Predators continuing their point streak. The latest, the 17th game in that point streak, a 1-0 win over Detroit. That whole game deserves a breakdown on its own. We also have some Monday plus minus, which may or may not include a certain member of the Nashville Predators and their fighting abilities. That's going to come up on today's show. Before we jump into it, though, want to start by mentioning that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right, and let's start with the 17th consecutive game with a point for the Nashville Predators. A 1-0 win over the Detroit Red Wings. Everything about this game, and felt like we were back in 2007, 2008, like those old school Predators Red Wings rivalry games, like the old NHL Central Division was back, and Detroit was back in the Western Conference. A lot of Red Wings fans at Bridgestone Arena, which, hot take, I think makes the atmosphere that much more fun. When it's, I thought that same way about Blackhawks games too. Both of these teams have really been playing good hockey over the last little bit. The Red Wings really needed a win to kind of, get themselves in a better spot in the playoff hunt. The Preds, of course, wanted to keep their 17 game point streak going. It just seems like this was a very, very fun game all around. Just everything, just the atmosphere, the stakes, the intensity that happened during the game. This was just, let's take the implications out of it for a second, and just a really fun game to be able to experience.
Yeah, this was classic, like you said, Detroit Red Wings, Nashville Predators battle. And if anybody felt like that rivalry had kind of died with the way the divisions had kind of separated these two teams, it is back. And I guarantee you what happened Saturday in Smashville is going to carry over to the next time these two teams meet down the road in next season, because the atmosphere was insane. It was playoff atmosphere. It was on ice. It was an absolute battle. The stakes were so high, like you had talked about. The energy in Bridgestone Arena was just incredible. It was one of those games that I think people are going to say, I remember when I was at the game where the Predators played the Red Wings back in 2024, and it was just a 1-0 win, and it was back and forth. Like, it really was classic hockey battle. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. The game itself too, just an embodiment of, I think, the overall game itself. This was a knock it down, drag it out kind of battle from both teams. UC Saros and Alex Lyon, give them some steps each, because both goalies played an incredible game. And sure enough to form, it just felt like, and I believe it was Tyson Barrie who said it after the game. He just said, it just felt like when we got in that third period, the team that was going to score first was
Yes.
going to have it. And then here come the Nashville Predators with 5 minutes left in the game. And it's Filip Forsberg, who is a good goal scorer, not so good of a fighter, but a good goal scorer.
Yeah.
Who gets the tie. And it was the type of goal that he scored right there, and was also kind of an embodiment of the game. It was just, kind of a loose puck in front of the net, bouncing around. Both teams seemed like they had trouble kind of tracking. It just winds up on Forsberg's stick, who just kind of gives it a quick little flick from right in front of the slot, and it gets past Alex Lyon, and there's your goal, and there's your game-winning goal right there. And to me, it was just that goal, who it came from, Filip Forsberg, who now is 1 away from 40 on the season, I should say. We saw him drop the gloves earlier in the game. We saw him dishing out some punishment, with some physical play, not when it comes to Mort Seider, but when it comes to, battling players along the boards. And it's him that gets sort of the grinded out goal. And it was a perfect ending to that game, I thought, and very symbolic of the way both teams were playing.
Yeah, this game really was a battle, and you have to give it to Detroit. Nashville did not come out and play their best hockey in the first and second period, but part of the reason they didn't play their best hockey in the first and second period was goaltending for Detroit was incredible. Detroit came out so hungry. They were battling for every puck. I mean, this was just a slugfest, minus the Forsberg fight. It really was a slugfest. And you talk about that, game scoring sequence, that shift was absolutely crazy. But the moment you saw that puck kind of land near Filip Forsberg's stick, and he kind of squared up to that net, he had a defender in front of him, but it was that moment where in your gut, as a Nashville Predators fan who's watched Filip Forsberg recently, oh, he's going to find a sliver of daylight. Like, you just knew, like, if it didn't go in then, I don't know that it was going to happen. And it really was one of those games where you thought, it's whoever scores. This is like a 60 minutes of sudden death between these two teams. It was a classic hockey game, classic battle.
Yeah. So let's shift to big picture a little bit now, Anne, because the Nashville Predators 17 straight games at the point, 15-0-2 in that span. Not only are they firmly in the playoff race at this point, they seemingly kind of have a spot, I don't want to say locked up, but it would be very surprising at this point if they don't make the playoffs.
Right.
Not only that, but you look at the standings, and it's also not out of the question that they could jump into the top 3 in the Central at this point.
Yeah.
Like, Winnipeg's on a bit of a slide. So here's the question, Anne, because when we started this point streak, this winning streak, 3-4 games in, the conversation was, can the Predators just keep up this level of play for the rest of the season? Like, turn this into a consistent thing. Then it sort of became, can the Nashville Predators maybe ride this wave a little bit and get into the playoffs? Now are we at the point where the question has changed yet again to, is this Nashville Predators team, are they contenders for a cup at this point? Are they a dark horse contender that playoff teams are going to have to be account for?
Yeah. And, on the surface, when you look at this situation, you think, no, I mean, really, like, we're having a lot of fun here in Nashville. This has been really great. The Preds are going to make the playoffs, but can they really be a contender? And on the surface, you say, no, of course not. But then look at some of the statistics from this 17 game consecutive point streak. The Predators have outscored their opponents 69-29. They are tied for first in the league when it comes to first period goals. They are getting on the board first. They have only been scored on first twice in this whole span, and that was Minnesota twice. They are second in goals per game over this stretch. They are fourth in shots per game. And then you look at goaltending, and you have one of the best goaltending tandems performing right now. And there's a part of me that's like, wait a minute. all of a sudden it does go from can the Predators make the playoffs to, could the Predators make it interesting in the first round to who could the Predators potentially beat further on? I mean, it seems far-fetched. This is the Oakland of the NHL, for the Predators to do this. But could they do it? I'm beginning to wonder. I don't know.
They have, if the playoffs ended today, it would be Colorado in the first round, who is, other than the Nashville Predators, the hottest team in the NHL.
Yes.
At this point. We know the history between those two. I don't know, maybe does Colorado leapfrog Vancouver and the Preds play Vancouver first? I said this on, the podcast before we went our separate ways for a couple weeks, but I said a lot of the Predators, their sort of fate in this postseason, it's going to depend on luck above all else. Who are they going to match up with? Are they going to match up with a team that's maybe sliding a little bit while the Predators are rising? Are they going to meet up with another hot team like Colorado? Are they going to take advantage of a team like Winnipeg, who've really been off their game the past few weeks, and maybe leapfrog them? So, the way this team is playing right now, Anne, yes, absolutely. They get the right matchup. They get the right players going at the right time. This is a team that can absolutely, I think, surprise a couple of teams in the postseason and maybe make it far into the postseason. A lot of it may just have to be with luck. They could very well run into a future Stanley Cup champion in round one, losing 7 games. So it's going to depend on a lot of things. Luck, I think, is going to be the biggest one.
Yeah.
More to talk about from the Nashville Predators play right now. It's Monday. So, of course, we got plus minus coming up. We'll break down the highs and lows in the Nashville Predators play over the past few weeks. Spoilers, there's a lot more pluses than minuses. We'll talk about that in just 1 second. First, want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Folks, over the past week, I haven't been on the show. I've actually been out in Colorado skiing. And after a couple of days, we were in Denver, decided to check out a Colorado Avalanche game. It was completely a last-minute thing. So we opened the Game Time app and got some seats to the Avs game. The thing I loved about it is I've never been to that arena before. Ball Arena, great place. Shout out to our Locked On Avs friends. A great place to watch a hockey game, but I'd never been there before. So I used Game Time's show your seat feature to see the seats in the arena. I knew exactly what the sight lines were going to be. So I chose those seats and then used Game Time's all-in prices feature to know exactly what my final cost was before I checked out. Game Time made the entire ticket buying experience super easy, super convenient, and that's what Game Time is designed for. They're designed to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. They always have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even sometimes an hour after it starts. So they have plenty of great last-minute deals on things like football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and of course, hockey. And the best thing about Game Time is the Game Time guarantee. It means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Ann, it's Monday, which means it's time for plus minus. You guys know how this works. We go through the past week of Nashville Predators hockey, highlight things that are going well, which is a lot at this point. We give them pluses, talk about some things that maybe need improvements, and we throw a minus at it. So, Ann, let's start off with a plus. What do you got?
I'm going to start off with something that's obvious, but probably not the most obvious one, but I want to make sure we get to it. So I want to give a plus this week to goaltending. And we talked about it just a few minutes ago, but really want to take a closer look at the stats for Josi Saros and Kevin Lankinen, two goaltenders who had shutouts this week. Saros in this 13 game, or in his 13 games of this 17 game stretch, he is averaging 937 save percentage. Lankinen has played 4 games in this 17 game stretch, 948. They allowed 2 goals on 75 shots this week. 2 goals on 75 shots, y'all. No goals. No goals. They have been so good. I think that they have to be considered one of the best goaltending tandems right now. Probably second behind Ullmark and Swayman, who are also fantastic in Boston. But I think you can look at all of the amazing things that are happening in front of the net for the Nashville Predators. We have a ton of players that we're going to talk about through this plus section who are performing really, really well. But so much of what has been going on this season has kind of gone the way of the goaltender. You know, when Saros has struggled, the team has struggled. Everything is coming together in net right now. And I have to tell you, it is so, so exciting to see both Saros and Lankinen playing this well, because that's exactly where you need your goaltenders to be looking ahead to the postseason. So for me, goaltending this week, fat plus. I can't get over it. 2 goals, 75 shots. Just incredible.
Incredible. And I think they said the 4th longest shutout streak in team history.
Yeah. Yes. I think it is 4th or 5th. They've gone 154 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. I think the longest since maybe Dan Ellis back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it several times. It seems like goaltending has kind of made or broken the Nashville Predators. And they are at a point right now where they finally seemingly have everything going in the right direction. And look, Josi Saros absolutely deserves a lot of credit around the league for how he's playing right now. And I've told everybody, let's not count out Kevin Lankinen either, because he has been absolutely lights out in the couple of games the Predators have trusted him in. And that's going to be huge down the stretch, because the Nashville Predators don't have to put, Josi Saros in the spotlight and be like, okay, you're kind of putting this team on your back. They now have 2 goaltenders that can kind of, and Kevin Lankinen can kind of take the load off of Saros down the stretch. And, that may save the Nashville Predators in a couple of spots.
It makes me think that all of the GMs who kind of rolled their eyes at whatever Barrie Trotz's asking price was for Josi Saros, maybe they're thinking, dang, maybe it was worth it had we decided to pay what Barrie Trotz was asking. And I think the same thing with Kevin Lankinen. Like, hey, all you GMs who didn't call to try to make a deal for Kevin Lankinen, that must suck for you.
Yeah, there are a couple of teams right now sort of on the fringe of the playoffs that had a chance to make a big goaltending splash either in the offseason or at the deadline that didn't. That I think maybe now are kind of looking at themselves being, you know what, maybe we need to take a swing at goaltending here.
Yeah.
That's true about the East and the West right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going for another obvious one. But I have to say Filip Forsberg and Roman Josi, because these are the 2 guys that both deserve some kudos. During this 17-game point streak the Nashville Predators have on, Filip Forsberg has 14 goals and 11 assists for 25 points. Again, this is during that 17-game stretch, 25 points in this 17-game stretch for Filip Forsberg. You go over to Roman Josi, and he's got 23 points in that 17-game stretch, 7 goals, 16 assists, and he's doing it while playing just under 24 minutes of ice time a night. And I think back to, of course, the giant U2 fiasco and everything like that. And, people were kind of just saying, it's like, oh, that's like kind of a dig at Preds locker room leadership there. And, Andrew Burnett and Barrie Trotz kind of making backhanded references. It's like, yeah, the locker room was seemingly more excited for their vacations than they were about playing hockey. That's kind of a backhanded dig at the leadership in the locker room, whether you're saying it, whether you're explicitly saying it or not. Filip Forsberg and Roman Josi are the 2 leaders of the locker room. And since those comments, they have been the 2 to step up. Yeah. They have been the ones carrying this team on their back. This is the absolute best I've seen Filip Forsberg ever play. This last, 20-game stretch is the best I've ever seen Filip Forsberg play. And this was the guy that was supposed to kind of have peaked, maybe a couple of years ago at that 84-point season. I look at Roman Josi. This is the best I've seen him play since his Norris Trophy season. And yes, I'm including the 2022 96-point season in that conversation, because it's not just offense for him. The way he's handling things on the defensive end on the ice, Andrew Burnett has relied more on him defensively this season than I think, John Hines really ever did. And Roman Josi has stepped up to the occasion, and I think is reminding everybody around the NHL, look, yeah, I score a lot of points. I'm not a one-trick pony. Yeah. I can be a shutdown defender like I have in the past. And these two people, to me, Ann, the two most critical people to the Nashville Predators' success, maybe more so than Juuse Saros in certain ways, the fact that it's these two that are playing some of their best hockey ever in a absolute make or break stretch for this franchise is telling where this team is at right now.
I think it's so interesting when you talk about Roman Josi and Filip Forsberg together, and I am going to throw Juuse Saros in that conversation, but because do you remember when Barry Trotz was piecing together this team, he said, here are the building blocks that we already have. We already have a high caliber defenseman in Roman Josi. We already have an offensive weapon in Filip Forsberg. We have outstanding elite goaltending in Juuse Saros. And when you see all three of them playing at the level that we know they can, this is what happens to the team around them. And I absolutely agree with you. Roman Josi looks like he looks like a man possessed on the ice right now, whether he is making some move offensively, whether he's getting back on defense. Filip Forsberg is on pace for a 45 goal season, which would be career high and the franchise high. And I do not put it past him at the rate he's scoring. This past week, 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points. Filip Forsberg, this is the best hockey we've ever seen from Filip Forsberg, hands down.
Yeah, and he seems to be getting better game by game. That's a scary thing for a lot of teams around this league. And speaking of Filip Forsberg, let's talk about maybe the one minus from that game against Detroit, plus a couple of other players, including a frequent minus, and that I think deserves a plus. So we'll dive into that in just 1 second.
Well, the Nashville Predators look like they may be headed to the playoffs this season, but regardless of where Nashville finishes in the standings, we want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. It's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do at Sleeper is pick whether players like Filip Forsberg, Roman Josi, or Juuse Saros will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Preds fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you're going to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availabilities.
All right, Ann, continue with plus minus. Let's get to a minus. Can we talk about the Filip Forsberg Mo Seider fight from Saturday? First off, I guess the plus in that is that it was maybe the most handsome hockey fight we've ever seen in the NHL.
So much hair. So much hair flying around.
Yeah, this is like 2 drunk people getting into an argument at a GQ after party, or at the Met Gala or something like that.
Yes.
Filip Forsberg, love that he stood up for himself.
Yep.
Love that he's feisty. Love that he's not afraid to drop the gloves with anybody in this league. The actual fighting skills that Filip Forsberg possesses, Anne, I think he may need to go to a boxing class. here or there
Yeah.
at some point, just to round out the punching skills a little bit, because as much as Bally Sports wants to tweet otherwise, Mo Sider
Both fighters on that fight.
got some haymakers on
Yeah.
Forsberg there.
Yeah, on hockeyfights.com, bless Filip Forsberg. Only 2% of voters felt like he won that. Mo Sider by a landslide. But I agree with you. I'm like, hey, here's for a look. I'm not taking nobody's crap. I love that. But again, it does come down to execution. And in his defense, it is very difficult to fight well on ice. But I was really surprised in this fight because I thought, Mo Sider, you better have eyes in the back of your head, because somebody like Michael McCarron is going to finish what Filip Forsberg started. But I like that the Preds teammates were like, all right, he handled it. I mean, it wasn't pretty, but he handled it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty. That was two pretty people fighting not pretty.
Yeah.
Not a great fight.
Yeah. I need hockeyfights.com to have like a handsome factor in a fight. I'm trying to think, is there been a more I know Roman Josi, I think, has had 2 fights in his career?
I think so. If you put Filip Forsberg and Roman Josi together for a fight, I think that would be your handsomest fight in the league. But
yeah,
it would never happen.
we need to find him handsome opponents, especially if they pull off like the the Matthias Ekholm, Colton Sissons, like unified haymaker punch in Winnipeg, like that old gif.
Yes. Oh yeah.
God, there's gonna be like Pantene or like some kind of like Drakkar Noir sponsoring the Nashville Predators.
They're gonna be they're gonna join. Is it Troy Polamalu who does Head and Shoulders? They're gonna be recruited for that. For that fight in slow motion is like Head and Shoulders commercial. Just a lot of hair.
They're just gonna wink at the camera as they're absolutely clobbering somebody, or in Forsberg's case, maybe just getting punched in the face over and over again.
Yeah.
And a couple of other pluses that we get to, because there's not a lot of minuses in a 17 game point streak. So let's go to a minus that we've had frequently this year. And that's Tyson Barrie. And I think this is a guy, Ann, who deserves a plus for how he's played since he's come back into the lineup.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And look, there is nothing about this season that has been easy for Tyson Barrie on or off the ice. And the consistent thing that we have heard from teammates, from Andrew Brunette, from Barry Trotz, is that Tyson Barrie has continued to be somebody who is putting in the work, somebody who has been a great teammate, somebody who has been an encouragement in the locker room, who is still contributing, even though he was seeing so little ice time because he was a healthy scratch for stretches. But Dante Fabro out, Spencer Stasny out, Tyson Barrie in the lineup, and you cannot be disappointed in what you're seeing from Tyson Barrie. I know a couple of times when he was put in the lineup, he maybe didn't have great games earlier, but he has been really solid for the Nashville Predators in this stretch of hockey. And you've got to give props to him for that, because he was ready when the Predators needed him.
Yeah. In the 2 games he's been, or the 4 games he's been back, he had 2 games with an assist. Both of those assists came on his shots that were deflected by somebody else into the net. So there's 2 good offensive plays. I think defensively, he's played pretty well in this stretch. And it's been tough for Tyson Barrie, but he's come in, and I think they absolutely needed him to kind of put everything that's happened this year behind him. And he's done just that, because this has been the best we've seen him play all year as well. So kudos to Tyson Barrie. Another person that I think deserves a plus, Ann, is Luke Evangelista.
Yes.
This is a player who has gotten better game by game, week by week. He's getting more responsibility as the season goes on. And it was just, just flat out, he looked like maybe the best Predator on the ice during that Detroit game.
Yeah.
Like he just, every time, even though he wasn't the one that was on the ice, when the Filip Forsberg got the go-ahead goal, even though he didn't score, it just seemed like every time he was on the ice, the Predators made a big play happen or had a big chance, and he was a critical part in that. And boy, it just really seems like Luke Evangelista is starting to show the type of player that he can be for this team moving forward, a very dangerous top 6 playmaker.
Yeah, and I think his style of play has evolved so much. If you watched him in the beginning of the year, I think, maybe he was second guessing some things. You could see him kind of thinking the game. You could see him maybe hesitating in, am I going to engage in this, kind of physical battle? Luke Evangelista right now is literally all over the ice. He will go from one side of the rink to the other to get a puck. He is pursuing pucks like he is on the fourth line. Playing. He is physical. He is winning board battles. He is not giving up puck possession under pressure. He's generating great offensive chances. I agree with you. I think he is very confident right now. And I think he looks so comfortable. Like, you're back to seeing Luke Evangelista playing just a very natural, comfortable, confident game. And it's been so helpful for this Nashville Predators team in this stretch. So I agree with you. Huge plus for Evangelista.
Yeah. Any other final pluses before we sign off, Ann?
I do want to give one plus to Michael McCarron. I have been delighted by his performance. I know fourth line guy, but he has worked really hard, had 2 goals. Just holding out for that McCarron hat trick one day. He had 2 goals against San Jose, but I really want to give him a plus because if you saw the locker room video where they kind of hand the belt, this championship belt from one player to the next, he handed it off to Kevin Lankinen with the quote, "Holy moly, what a goalie." And I'm like, you got to love the energy. And now I just really feel like I want to write a children's book called Holy Moly, What a Goalie. So plus to Michael McCarron for bringing the goals and bringing the energy this week.
Yeah, coming to a
Barnes and Noble
near you. Yeah, I was trying to think of like some kind of hockey themed score. I know there's hockey romance novels out there, so
yeah, it's not going to be that, friends.
Which is disappointing. That's more of a Luke Evangelista thing.
I'm not writing that one either, friend.
Yeah, Pretty Boy Vincenzo in Winter Paradise.
Nope, not writing it. Not reading it either.
I'm sure there's a lot of people on Twitter that will.
It's true.
Well, Nashville Predators, another big test coming up tomorrow night. That is going to be against the Vegas Golden Knights, a team who, as of now, the Nashville Predators are ahead of in the standings. So that's going to be a big one. We're going to have a preview of that game coming up on tomorrow's Locked On Predators podcast. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at Penalty Box Radio. You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can also find my work at Penalty Box Radio, or you can read my thoughts or random asides, whatever you call tweets nowadays, on social media at _NS Morgan. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back with an all-new episode tomorrow. We'll see you then.